Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily cavil or fight with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Well, I think it's rare that we have a kind of complaint about quietness, because in spiritual life, I suppose, quietness is welcome. But I understand what you mean. It means, in your context, that there's an expectation of some busyness in this period of time and things are not happening as you expected. And that is creating some frustration and probably disturbing your meditation. Can you just give me the link then between sitting and having a chat, as it were, with a chosen ideal and this moment of quiet? I didn't catch the link.
No, I was having the conversation with Sri Ramakrishna, kind of saying this was an unusual day, giving thanks for everything, but going, didn't really get a whole lot done. So almost I'm reporting, but there's not a whole lot to report. I wish things had moved along more quickly, or more results from the day to lay at his feet. So it was more that, almost apologizing for it, but then reflecting on it in my meditation, going, I don't know if I was I don't know. I absolutely know I wasn't very comfortable with the quiet, or the lack of momentum.
Well, firstly, what is really good is this chat. And that's something that often is lacking for devotees, to see that their chosen ideal is an entity that is personal as your closest friend, your father, your mother, your closest relative, and closer than that, closer than breathing, the source of life. And so that aspect of it, of course, is very good. And then as the recommendation, and my recommendation in the evening, of course, is the same as Holy Mother's, what we mean by Holy Mother, Sharada Devi's recommendation, that in the evening you review the day and then you offer all the activities and fruits of those activities to the divine. And then you might say, well, okay, but I could have been more efficient, or nothing much happened, or and I'm concerned that maybe things aren't moving along as quickly as I had wanted, and so on. Okay. But then there's a third component missing. The third component is to say, tomorrow I'll do better. And when we say better, we can see or strategize how we could actually be more active. When the Benedictine monastic movement was started, Saint Benedict had this vision of orari labori, orari et labore, that means pray and work, or work and pray, you can put it the other way around. And so the day was divided up like that. And the idea was that there are moments of quiet reflection, meditation, worship, and there are moments of activity. This was really the secret, or the key ultimately to the wealth of monasteries in the Western world, because they became free laborers, the monks became free laborers and became highly productive. So we have to keep busy, even though things may not be, the incoming fruits of our activities may not necessarily be there. Still, it's important to keep ourselves busy. And it's that busyness in this present moment that we actually call karma yoga, that is doing all activities without any anxiety or concern for the results, poetically called the fruits of our activities, phala, fruits. And so in doing this, we attune ourselves to the glory of the present moment. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that the universe is constructed in such a way that what we think we get. So we have to be very careful about the subtlety of negative thinking. Expectation sometimes is negative thinking. I want, followed by, in brackets, I haven't got. You won't get anything. A +1 or -1, you won't get anything. So any intention that is put in, if it is cancelled within the first, second, third, fourth, fifth moment, becomes thoroughly in the negative and negation category. So if we want greater fruits, then really seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, other things will be added unto thee. We have to then see that there is a wonderful, wonderful creative capacity that is given to us. Creation didn't start off with, or didn't end with, a beginning, and then God went on holiday. God made the world and went on holiday. That's not what we read in Scripture. God made the world and saw that it was good, and found it sufficiently important to enter into it. The Upanishads tell us it is an anta, it is an inner controller, antaryaman, making something, weaving a web around itself, as it were. Brahman now enters into it. So when we can see this and with faith declare this is a thought, this is an intention that ultimately will benefit everybody. That's the catch about it. A generous intention, then it will come to fruition without the component of impatience or anxiety, so that everything that we do becomes an offering there and then, not just at the end of the day, but there and then, in situ. That's the point. Preparing a fruit and then you eat it now, not preparing a fruit and leaving it for a few days or to the end of the day. You prepare it, you consume it. You offer it, you consume it. So that is really the formula, practicing the divine presence with the wonderful expectation that the fruits will come supplied by the divine itself. Jesus put it so beautifully and poetically. The lilies of the field are clothed, the birds of the air are fed. All of this is supplied freely. Without our asking, it comes to us. We don't have to pray, Lord, may you give us the next breath. Next breath comes. It's a given. And when it doesn't come, well, hopefully we have some forewarning about that. Well, okay, this is your last breath. All right, then take advantage of that knowledge and put something useful in. Useful means something that feeds into our own freedom and that of everyone else. And the two are inseparable. There's no such thing as selfish spirituality. Spirituality has a spirit of generosity that includes sarva bhutam, all creatures, all beings. That's the language that is used. So I hope that is in some way helpful and useful to you. And if it's incomplete, let me know.
No, that's fine, Swamiji. I think also your suggestion of today is today, I've enjoyed the day, tomorrow's another day, I can do better, or yeah.
Yes. So this went well, this didn't go so well, tomorrow it'll go better. I make that resolution. Okay, good. Are there any more questions? I suppose I have a question. Very often it's a controversial aspect of conventional religion when a lot of money is spent on buildings. In South India, great mandirs are there with great resources of gold and treasure, and much of it kept behind locked doors. Some of it discovered, and some of it anticipated. Very wealthy temples. And then, of course, when we can see some of the great other buildings, let's say in the Western world, buildings made from, in a Gothic style, great cathedrals. So much effort is put into it, so much money has gone into it. And very often the criticism is that money could go to feed the poor, And why do people who, even in the midst of poverty, spend vast amounts of money in building temples and churches and cathedrals? And is it a waste of time? So I am asking this question, I suppose, because without giving an answer specifically, without saying yea or nay, but just laying some facts about the requirement for organizational community effort. Even the pyramids would have required it. Some extreme monument that is built. For example, in England, you have Stonehenge, carting masses of rock from vast distances. Another example in Ireland, of course, would be Newgrange, which is older than the pyramids and older than Stonehenge, a Neolithic structure. Again, bringing materials from far and wide, including quartz from Wicklow Mountains so far away. And then you have, for example, one very famous abbey, which looks like a fairy tale abbey in the midst of shifting sands and incoming and outgoing currents. And this abbey was built by sending ships away to a particular island, something like 15 kilometers away from the site, and bringing this vast masses of stone to construct a great monument, a great abbey. And then, of course, in France, 7 big cathedrals have been built with a very special intention in mind. And one particular one, there was a great fire, and people from all over the known world, well, that is the known Christian world, the whole of Christendom, they combined all their efforts and built the most magnificent structure that stands today. And it took them a long time to construct. And there was a great deal of knowledge on how to construct a building so that it doesn't collapse, how you support the outer walls, but how you use it as an education tool. Don't forget, in medieval times and before, literacy rate was not even present. And so you make big stained glass windows, and you make massive statues and monuments and so on and so forth, all with the idea of making it something like a book. And the outer walls, or the walls of this book, are something like the covers of the book, and it opens up, and there anybody can stand in awe and learn biblical stories, theological instructions, and so on and so forth, extremely effectively, and with great deal of aestheticism, a sense of beauty, putting beauty, so that all these buildings become more of an expression, not to go and get something. Sometimes there may be a little bit of a flavor of that there may have been a disaster or a plague or something like that, so you try to build a monument in order to appease the particular local deity, say. But the vast majority of these buildings are from the great expression, the great spiritual fervor of individuals. For example, South Indian temples will be sponsored by great kings, a lineage of kings. Same thing with Buddhist monuments. And so royal patronage is a part of it. But generally, it's the whole people who want to make a community effort and do this for the benefit of the whole community, where spires can be seen from several dozens of kilometers away and serve to inspire people to go on pilgrimage, even in the poorest condition, and maybe to give sight to historical relics of saints or holy relics of some kind. And so there's a great deal of merit that people saw in this for themselves and for everybody in this. And it presents us with a great cultural heritage, which is so beautiful, so artistic, promoting pilgrimages and so on. Now, if you can view a whole life as a pilgrim, of course, we're all in a pilgrimage, but you'll see that there are in every religion special provisions for going on toward a pilgrimage and understanding every component of the way, every subtle symbolic symbol of the way. So sometimes, for example, labyrinths are constructed and all geometrically arranged. Figures are presented, let's say, on the outside walls of a cathedral in a certain number, and you can relate this number to some mystical experience. So it involves some kind of mystical insight that also involves theology, it also involves education, that also involves many craftspeople who become employed and engaged. Today, in some countries, the way to create local employment is get the local community to assist in building roads. Sometimes in some countries it's like that. But in the ancient days, you didn't require that. Because supposing you built a palace, or supposing you built a temple or a church, it would be something for the benefit of the whole community and would employ so many different kinds of skills: stonemasons, architects, engineers, people constructing pulley systems, people who involved in manual labor, people involved in painting, in sculpting, people involved in the assembly of stained glass windows. And all of this is not for nothing. So by constructing this, how will we relieve poverty? What we see as a building is a series of noble thought movements. And every part of the community will benefit from it. Even from a practical point of view, you create, let's say, a cathedral town or a cathedral city, and it attracts merchants, it attracts pilgrims that are willing to give money. You have to build hostels for them to stay, hotels, for example, and so on, and the whole thing thrives. There's a very contemporary pilgrimage site in Croatia. Well, I think it's Bosnia or Herzegovina, one such country, formerly Croatia anyway, or formerly, Yugoslavia. And it is called Medjugorje. It's a Marian shrine. And many years ago, it was just a few local people giving hospitality to a handful of pilgrims. The handful of pilgrims became hundreds, is now thousands, and more than that, millions. And see how, for better or worse, how the town now thrives, even selling small, memorabilia that people can take away from them and so on. So in our own minds, in our own lives, our simple work has to be viewed from, firstly, is it aesthetic work? Now you can say, well, how can sitting and doing a clerical job be in any way artistic or aesthetic? Well, I could answer that question quite easily in previous days where handwriting was an art. And the art of scripting in such a beautiful way has all but gone, unfortunately, because now we're into a computer generation. But even so, I watch young people doing what I call their thumb exercises, sending texts and doing a whole lot of work and business and interaction in a very, very small amount of time, in a jiffy. They have such a great flexibility. The older generation get left behind, actually. Now, you could say that the art of compiling words, the art of communication is also an art. And speech is also something that can be done with a great deal of care. What you write, what you speak, it should be done in such a way that it uplifts another person. It should all be done with a sense of spirituality, so that the whole of your work that we were discussing earlier becomes a thorough spiritual exercise which contains within it beauty, aesthetics, and qualities of patience and perfectionism. In other words, doing things in such a way that they are careful because they are worshipful. They're not careless. When you make somebody that you respect a cup of tea, you see that it is done absolutely to perfection, for example. And so if all our work is done like this, at the end of the day, we're happy to report all my work was done absolutely in the best possible way, with the best possible attitude, and I'm fully joyful. It might not have been as efficient as I had wanted. Never mind, tomorrow's another day, and I will increase my efficiency. What is efficiency? It is more output with less input. It's an energy term. Less energy expenditure with more result. Now, very often, it's the other way around. We spend more energy with the lack of priorities and anxiety and less output. And it serves to frustrate ourselves. So the two issues are interrelated. The problem, I suppose, with these great cathedrals and these mandirs and so on is today, where everybody more or less has a camera on their phone, they'll go and take a video or they'll go and take photographs instead of sitting in the place, absorbing the environment, absorbing the atmosphere. That's where you find the treasure of these wonderful buildings that have a lot of gold in them, and a lot of people spend a lot of money. Even in Kanyakumari, there's a rock memorial to Swami Vivekananda. You take a boat out where he swam across to the rock, famous rock, where he sat down and resolved his conviction that he should go over the seas with the vision of his master calling him across the seas, a kind of unconventional move. And that then became his work in the West. So there's a big memorial to Swami Vivekananda with a big statue there, of him standing there, in a wonderful heroic pose is how I would describe it. And this rock memorial was built with a few rupees from here, from there, from the whole people of India. Quite remarkable. So when the community get together in this surge of energetic movement, you cannot do it and at the same time wage war. Imagine building something where income comes from all over the world, in those days the known world, and materials supplied, sponsorships applied, and a great deal of camaraderie, and setting politics aside, setting national differences aside. It's a wonderful thing. So we can learn a lot from the construction of these various buildings and these shrines. It helps to elevate the mind. And by elevating our mind, not just me, because a cathedral is not built for one person. It is built so that everybody may enter and gaze in wonder and awe and astonishment at the marvelous aesthetic feats of skilled people who not only were skilled but did everything carefully for a purpose. They understood the subtlety and the message and the educational aspect of it. So even a gopuram, a gate of a South Indian temple that has so many different figures on it, all beautifully painted, can instruct a small child about the various aspects of divinity and gaze in awe at that and how people manage to build such a structure. If anybody has been to Mount Abu, I'm thinking straight away, where the Jain temples are there, all in marble, where every single square inch is carved, individually carved, by the way. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, the same thing goes, of course. There's one cathedral where the screen that separates the people going round the place of business, if you like, ritualistic business, and that is was carved over something like 200 years. Imagine, 200 years, carefully scenes, and all of them are scenes that help the pilgrim, like a book. Who is a pilgrim who is illiterate helps the pilgrim to understand not only the theology of it, but also the philosophy and the mythical aspects of it, but also the moral lessons told from it and the deeply spiritual relevance of it on your journey, to your journey. So, all good. Well, I'll pause there in case there are any other questions that were formulated.
I have a question. This is quite a specific question, and the answer might be short. But I was reading in the Gospel, Swamiji, about I think it was Sri Ramakrishna was in conversation with M, and he was talking about incarnations and how he identified himself as an incarnation. But he said, I will only need to live one more time. I'm paraphrasing. And I'm wondering what he meant by that. And also, you know, did he fully, at what point did he fully understand, or was it from the very beginning that he knew, because of the information his father was given, that he was going to be an incarnation? Did he know he was an incarnation?
Well, I try and avoid questions about incarnation, because incarnation, the whole idea is, can be a theological minefield. So devotees, for example, of Shiva don't recognize the avatara system. Only the Vaishnavites will do it, because mostly the incarnations are from Vishnu. But there's a reason for that, because Vishnu is the one, the cosmic mind, that, or cosmic balancing power, that is responsible for adjusting things from age to age. And we're assured of this from the Bhagavad Gita. So that is, if Ramakrishna recognizes the incarnation, and the cosmic mind has no time in the linear sense. It's only humans that have a sense of time, as we do, conveniently. So certainly when we say from age to age, it's a human calculation, And it's said that the incarnation occurs every 500 years approximately. And or whenever is required, but it figures out something like that. And there was the idea that maybe he would come again in Russia or somewhere out in that region. I don't like to get bogged down in those kinds of things, because what is here and what is now is much more important, much more significant in how we conduct our lives. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I don't like to put Sri Ramakrishna in the fish marketplace. And so for that reason, I refer to Ramakrishna here and there, but the main thrust of what I say is to do with Vedanta. It has a more wide appeal. But there's no doubt that the great Rishi of this age would have been testably, easily, by far uncontestable Paramahansa Ramakrishna. And Vivekananda said, whether you take him as an incarnation, or whether you take him as a holy man, or a great saint, or whatever, that's entirely up to you. Those who take him as an incarnation will have an added benefit, no doubt, particularly from the devotional point of view, yes. But we won't get into the argument whether Jesus was the only incarnation or not, and so on and so forth, all of these kinds of things, because that becomes a little disturbing. And so we don't want to upset people's faith. Anyhow, if you have accepted Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation, would he have known about it? And certainly his own testimony says yes, he would have declared it many times. Not only him, but the Bhairavi Brahmani also stated it. Don't forget, that was Ramakrishna's first official teacher, and significantly a woman. And she taught him all the devotional aspects of the tantric system and so on. And so she recognized with him 18 bhavas, or emotional signs of an incarnation. And so brought two pundits, two great scholars of that day, to have a debate about it, an examination of it. And these two great scholars at the end of the day agreed. Yes, indeed, he was. Ramakrishna sat there like a child. Oh, you say this, and what do you say? And he says this. As for me, I know nothing about it. Like a child, you see, this childlike nature. So but this knowledge would have come to him, there's no doubt. Now, we don't know whether such a knowledge was there from very birth, or whether it was revealed as time goes on. We don't know if Jesus, for example, knew at the age of 12 when he said that he must go about his father's business. Some kind of inkling about a destiny would have been there. Whether it was absolutely well formed as I'm an incarnation, we don't exactly know. But in any event, he would have declared it, he would have known it, he would have even read thoughts about it. Vivekananda thought, if this man now declares in a condition of cancer of the throat that he's incarnation, I will believe it. Ramakrishna immediately responds, see, he who came as Rama, he who came as Krishna is now here as Ramakrishna, and not in your Vedantic sense yet. Because in the Vedantic sense, of course, everything is Brahman. We are the eternal Atman, not in that sense. So, that's more of a commentary than an answer. But certainly, an incarnation coming from age to age will be exactly right, not only for the age, but will also be a reformer, naturally, for the age, as it's required appropriately, but also a great boon to devotees, because we cannot see God with the eyes. The absolute is beyond, it transcends everything. And so when we have the advantage of seeing a God-man or a God-like person, a human that has all the characteristics, a perfect human, essentially, then we know we have seen God. So this is how we would view it. And I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes, thank you, Swamiji.
I always remember one devotee, a Zimbabwean devotee who was migrated to England actually. And she said, I was traveling on a train and there was a Christian there and said, we are waiting for the second coming of Jesus. And she almost blurted out, yeah, he's already come. We know of him. Anyway, the point is, if you don't know that, don't recognize that, that should not impede any of your spirituality. Because you see, the problem is when you emphasize that, exclusivism comes in, and with exclusivism comes cult, and with cult comes fanaticism. So we take Ramakrishna as we find him, as is revealed to us by Ramakrishna himself. Well, we'll leave it there for this evening if there are no further questions. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Swamiji.